At least now we are back into a classroom mode. I now wear a different hat. Now after the service, now you get to know. This is the only opportunity we have that you get to know people, what they do in the other part of life, yeah? And therefore we are able to work together, even to be able to be useful to each other. Actually, one of the reasons why GEM should come together, and I want to qualify as people get seated, is that as you prepare to retire, especially those in employment, it's not that they are retiring, it's because they have been thrown out because the government have said you are no longer useful here, is it? But you are not, but you are still useful, is it? So it's just a lot of saying, now that they have thrown you out, you don't need also to throw yourself out. You can also do other things, something else, which you'll be able to explore today. Yes, Simon Kiruthi, and I think Ngigi, all those are mine. Even Kimani, although he's my son. But I got it earlier. And I know my wife has been really campaigning to drop it. But I will do that in good time. Amen? In part of my other life, I'm a personal finance coach. And this is what I have done for quite a bit. And I have a small profile for myself. Media team, you move with me the second slide. That is my registration number. But those are my small credentials. By God's grace, I have been in financial management for the last 31 years. Bigger part of that in consulting. And I have been privileged to work with some of those very big names there across about 25 countries in the continent and supported. That means that if you have an enterprise and you are struggling in your financial management, maybe this is the high time you should be able to make use of this available resource. Part of that, I have held very many roles in different places, and I give God all the glory. And as I retiring, I decided to do something in real estate. This is what I like most, and I run an organization called Ufanisi Real Estate. And that means in retirement, some of the things I will mention is that in retirement you consolidate your assets so that either you transfer them from mortar and brick into liquid. And that is part of the reason some of this why we are having this. Next one, go to the next. What comes in your mind when you see that? Hey. Can you go back? Yes. What comes in your mind when you see that? Yeah? Can you identify yourself where you are in that range? And that means it's actually telling you that at once we were toddlers. By God's grace, all of us, we are basically like number 3 from there, is it? And we are almost getting into RIP 1. At appointed, if Jesus tallies, is it? We'll find ourselves there. But we are all candidates. But what that picture tells you is that you have gone a full cycle. But how you end, that mzee with the bokora, how you end there is how you have planned your resources. It will be a disaster if you end there and you don't have resources with you and you are depending on others. So this is a critical sign to show I may have gone all through stages, but what did I do in each of these in preparation for at that point? I think that is something that you start thinking about, right? The next one. This is basically like those guys who are those who are retiring, and in employment, where you go, what do you mean close? Same circumstances. Have you seen companies that close down? And you go there, unaambiwa kume, and everybody should go home. And we find ourselves in that kind of state. What do you mean? That is closed. Because you are never prepared for it. In life, often has surprises. And there is nothing that is straight in life. And a good example happens in COVID. There are so many businesses that collapsed. Wewe tu ndio ulifunga, hata sio kufungwa ni wewe ulifunga. Because things were tough. But it is how you manage the resources you get when your business is thriving that makes the difference. And I would like us to look to change our mindset. That even the economic circumstances can actually send you in a place where you did not expect. You have been good doing in business, or you have been in employment, and anything can happen. What will make you survive beyond that point is the decisions that you have made on how you want to become at the end of it. And that's why we are here to help each other, that we don't find ourselves in a crossroad and we don't know what to do. Therefore, it is important to prepare and to plan accordingly. Next one, think retirement as a journey. Retirement can be equated to a journey. It has milestones and obstacles along the way. But it's also important to identify those milestones. Identifying those stops and obstacles allow for strategic planning and adjustment of the goals. One of the things that I have learned is that when we were just employed, we never thought about retirement. In fact, if you mention retirement, they look at you and wonder, well, we have so much ahead of us. Talk even to the young people about it. They will not even listen to you. But then years have gone so fast. And one of them have told me, there's somebody who have told me he's retiring in 3 months. There's one who said, I think in 3 years. And we'll be able to see, and all is not lost. But it's also important to document the retirement journey. So that at that transition, even in business, there is a time that you'll not have the energy to run the operations. Perhaps you'll need to retreat and take up a strategic position where you become an advisor. That is also a form of retirement because you are not able to do exactly the same things you are doing. So it is a journey. And therefore, it's a journey you'll be able to say, by the time I get here, I'll have done X. And that's why visioning is very critical. How did you envision? Maybe I want you a flashback. 10 years ago. How did you envision today? Did you envision where you'll be 10 years ago? Or have you ever pictured, for those who are just like the government officers who are just about getting to 60, did you ever envision yourself at 60? I can see the heads are shaking like this. It's shock. So how did you get yourself here, yet so fast? But then when you look back and you realize, actually, I have nothing to hold. So these are some of the critical things that perhaps we need. And therefore, the reality of life, in the next slide, please. Reality of life is that at what age should one start thinking about retirement? Maybe I can get 1 or 2 choices. What age should one think about it? Elder? At 30. Somebody else? At 40? The first you get the job. Anybody else that different? There are some places I hear they start thinking about it at 60. When you are being kicked out, that's when you think about it. It dawns that you actually have to. But when do you really start thinking about? When did you, as a person, maybe one. Kimani, when did you start thinking about it? At 55, 45. Him, he wanted to retire at 45, but he's still at it. So when did you start thinking about?
I retired formally from employment at the age of 30.
Good example. You did at 39, he did at 34. Him, he intended to do at 45, but he's still at it. You intended to when? You retired 40, but you are left stranded. Yes. You got a burnout, you got alternative. You can see the value, then you can be able to fix yourself there. But I want to ask amongst ourselves, are you scared? Is there anybody who has been scared of retirement? Anybody? Or you have all taken it by the horn? Bull by the horn? It is adversity come. I can see these ones, they are not scared. You guys, you are prepared. You are doing wonderful. So you can be able to tell when you started thinking, I believe if you sample, you'll find there are some people who are thinking about it at 7. But somebody else may be at all those range. So it is important that the reality of life is that the retirement, it reaches a point where you may not have the energy you have today. You may not do the things that you used to do, but you are also required to have enough resources to carry you through to the very end. You see that picture you see until when you are gone? Because a man is respected when he is able to stand on his own. He can support himself. And every time you are in old age and you are relying with your children, believe me, even when they are wrong, you have to say yes because you need their support. Is there anybody with me? So what we are saying is that even the remaining time that we have, it is important for us to think that financial independence at old age is no longer a luxury. It is a mandatory that we need all of us. Amen? Next one, next slide. There are 3 stages when you think about retirement. There is pre-retirement. There are those already, most of them are not here, but there are those who are now already in 30s, just like the ones who are thinking about it. In 30s and 40s, pre-retirement planning becomes, that is where the visioning is done. But even when you are late, it is not too late. I like the Japanese saying the best time to have planted a tree was 20 years ago or 50 years ago. But the next best time is now that it's even raining. You can be able to start planting now. Therefore, if you have not had a vision of even how you want to retire or how you want to age, this is the right place to begin with. You need to vision. Just like the way we have our vision there, community of believers, because all institutions have a vision. Do you have a personal vision for you and your family? It is important after this you go and do it. And this one now you envision not only as a person, you are also envisioning your children and the grandchildren. How would you like them to live their life? What really matters to you as a family? That is what is captured. And in that visioning, then it has to be accompanied by smart goals that will be able to give that momentum. Then it is also important financial planning for it. For those who are, and I think this is the message that you need to reach out to your children, because most of them are also in the active. You should be able to say that I did not have a privilege to do that. It was an omission on my part then. But do you also want your children to follow the same track? To make the same mistakes you did? So what should happen is that you should talk about it. And if they can't listen to you, send them to me. Right? You only need to pay for them, and I will teach them. And I will tell you, and I'll make an offer. Some of you, you need just to have a good financial planning for retirement. It is such a joy, and I know we shall have a time when we shall be able to see these guys who have already planned for their retirement. They already sorted, everything is planned out, and they are living great. And that is the beauty for everyone. Then there is a transition. Transition is now, these are now between 55 to 60, or heading up to around 65, especially those in business world. And in transition, that means you're already in, it is actually just there. Those who have less than 5 years to get there, especially those who are retiring from the formal work. For business people, they don't retire. They only change. And I like Warren Buffett is now 92, and he's still going to the office. He has not been sacked by anybody, and he's still very active. That means you can do much more than just, but they have already prepared their retirement in a way that even if they never did anything, all their needs have been met. I think that is what is the bottom line. So what is so critical when it comes to transition? Where you think you cannot do what you are doing, there is what you need to do is what? Cash flow management becomes very critical. Are you able to get money, for example, for medication when you need it? If a daktari tells you you have to have a special diet, are you able to buy what they have said they will do? So, how you make sure you have the money when you need it? And this is where I was talking about the real estate. And I know most people, the best or the available investment option has been is for land. Because when you are busy working, you do not have anything else. Kuna ploti mahali fulani, you just buy. Now, none of those assets are giving any income. And you are now getting to transition. For you to manage cash flows, it is the high time that you should be able now to think of selling them and building others. If you have 10, sell 5, build 2. And put another one in a liquid asset so that it can also give you interest income. And you'll be able to see some of those options. Hello, we are working together. The other one is basically lifestyle change. When it comes to transition, eating becomes a science now. You don't just eat everything. Even the body cannot be able to. So it becomes a lifestyle. You know exactly. It's how you are told you need now to sleep more hours. And because sometimes when you are busy working, you don't have even time to rest. At transition, you need to slow down. You have time to have a good sleep. You have time to walk around, to exercise. You have a good time also to laugh with you. And that's why GEM is important. Because when you meet as a small group, you can laugh and laugh your stress. You know, this is also, this transition time is when you have so many of those, the so-called, in quotes, lifestyle diseases. You find, huyu amepata hii, hakuli hii, sijui umeambiwa chumvi usikule, sijui. And when you are relaxing after pressure of work, ni unaambiwa usikule hii na usikule ile ingine. Have you ever asked yourself that way? Wakati watoto umemaliza school fees. Sasa ni wewe tu mnaenjoy na sasa ndio unaambiwa usijui usikule gani. It doesn't make sense. Let's have the lifestyle so that we take care and we can eat well. The other is legal planning. In transition, this is where you find sometimes certain things you happen and you just disappear and you expire. And you have not put a mechanism in place for what you have labored for all these years. Have you put a succession plan in place? When it comes to legal, when it comes to transition, it is important to think, how will your estate be managed? It is critical. A transition, if you have not written a will, please, you just need to have a draft, or with the modern phone, jitape vile unataka. Alafu upeleke lawyer atranscribe. Ataweza fanya exactly that. It is important. I know there are so many things you'll be able to say. If you write, it's like unajidhedha. That is a French word, is it? But it is important to do what is necessary and what is right. How come now, when you are already in it square, there are things that we need to think about? Liquidity. In fact, those assets somewhere else really will not matter. But if you need money for medicine, it is available. If there is some special things that you need to do, you can access money. So liquidity becomes, in fact, out of your wealth that you have, other than zile umeallocate utapatia mtoto wako huyu na huyu, everything else should be in liquid asset. 80% of what you have, you should be in there. That within 3 days to 7 days, you can actually convert that into money. And that should be in your visioning. You'll be able to say, at this age, I should have my liquidity ratio, in terms of the ratios of the money that you have, it should be able to be 70 to 80%. And that means if you want to take a holiday, you don't need to ask anybody about the ticket. Because the money is, there is somebody who is missing a holiday. And why you have not been able to go is because it is held up in an asset and you cannot unlock it and it's not available. Hello. So, liquidity management becomes important. Investments in retirement. In retirement is required, usijiue kwenda kujenga maflats when you're already 70. Wachia watoto wajenge. Sawa. There's some pressure utajiwekelea at that age of transition and retirement. Ukipigwa na banki simu, uputiwe pressure, the next day pressure itakuwa imeruka juu. Because even the body mechanism inakwambia haitaki kusukuma. You want to die that nutrition and health matters. Longevity of life is that, and I think this is the high time that we should have discussions about nutrition. Our body, the way it's made up, it is that the things that we used to eat, you could eat anything. You don't eat anything because even the body cannot be able to digest it. But if you can have a program from a nutritionist to tell you, Monday program yako itakuwa hii, proportion ya carbohydrates to proteins to vegetables ni, and it is important. That's why you find even these guys, and I admire the Japanese guys and Chinese. Those fellows, even when they are 90s, they look as if they are in 60s. If you find the secret they do is because of their nutrition, and they are also active. So we need to change our. So let me quickly run to each one of them, just to give a little bit meat on it. envisioning, especially for pre-retirement, and this is a message especially to your children. What kind of retirement? It is good to tell them, can they draw a picture that by the time they are not able to do what they are doing, how will their life look like? Can they, children, look back and be able to say that actually want to be like daddy? If they cannot be able to say they actually want to become like you, then you need to think twice. I don't know among your children who will be able to say, I like the way my parents have aged gracefully. Well, they are organized and they have. How many of your children will say that? So what we are saying is that let's encourage them to think and see beyond. Where to live in retirement is critical. I know most of you have settled. But it is important, and I know there are some people who are struggling. I heard with one yesterday somewhere, and he says he's actually thinking he's not even one. He was trying to figure out where he wants to put his retirement home. But he's almost in his 50s. It is important to know. I like the way Chairman said. He went back to home and he was a stranger. If you are to relocate from here and you go and stay in the village, oh, unto you. But at retirement, you need a support system. Therefore, you have to determine where you want to live, where you want to spend the rest of the sunset, where you have already put a community that you live in. So a choice of the place where you want to put away to age, it is important to determine now. What is the reasonable monthly income? If, for example, those in employment and are getting, for example, I want to be generous this time. I don't know how many are earning 500,000 shillings a month. At least on average. Kuna wale wako pale kwa normal curve, distribution curve. Kuna wale wako pande ile. Lakini normal distribution curve. Assuming that you get 300,000 shillings. On retirement, when you don't have that job and you would like to get the same lifestyle, that means you need to work backwards and be able to say, can I be able to generate the same money even at the retirement? Hello? And there are schemes that can help you do that. If you want to do for every 1 shilling or whatever 100,000 you need, you have to invest at least 1 million shillings. This is not 1 million, it's the other way around. It's actually normally like 1%. That means if you need at about 300,000, then you have to put in about 30 million Kenya shillings. That is the ratio. So that is the ratio. That means if you're already working and you're getting 300,000, for you to continue after that salary stops, that means you have put either in annuity or pension, not anything less than that. So that is something that you need to think about. Financial planning for retirement, what will be the source of income? If the kikuwa job umeondoka, ni nini ingine umecreate? For business people, it's different. But I'm telling you, it's a talent. Do you know to be an entrepreneur is a gift? And not everybody is an entrepreneur. And the entrepreneurs can tell you for sure. Are we going to get the money from the assets? That's why it is important to buy assets when you are young, because you can sell them and be able to have a liquid and put it in a way where you can be able to get as if you are paying yourself a salary. Will you be able to get money from business? If you have never done a business and you are trying it when after retirement, the choice of business must be selected very carefully. And I'll mention some of those that you don't even attempt. Some of them is agriculture. Don't attempt agriculture the old. Upatie pesa yako weka agriculture, you'll sink it. By the way, agriculture is for passion, not for profit. That's the reality. Others ni matatu business. If you want to go to grave very early, you are retired, ile pesa uchukue upeleke kwa matatu. Transport generally, not even matatu, even those trucks. Watafanya pressure yako iende juu. And I can see Mr. Kariuki nodding, he knows the truth. He knows. He gave me once a story. Right? So some of those, it is very, very, very important. Choice business. If you think your risk appetite is very low, if it's limited, please go to where the money can be, where money can work for you. Go put them in money market funds. Put the money there, make interest income. The other one is put a flat somewhere and be collecting rent. It has its own problems because wataweza kataa kulipa ama nyumba imeblock and I can see landlords which are here. Sometimes it's not easy, but it will give you a regular cash flows. We were talking about liquidity. So that is important. Pension or annuity. For those who are just retiring, it is important also to choose what pension you take. There is what we call a guaranteed pension, which can give you at least minimum of 15 years. And it should be joint in a way that if you expire before that time, that money your spouse can still enjoy it. If you don't enjoy the person, whenever you expire, it cuts there, whatever the rest of the money remains in insurance company. So it is important to know that. So seeking counsel and advice, it is important. I'm saying, when it is pension, you must ask the question, is it a guaranteed pension or just ordinary? Guarantee tells you that either you'll do it for 10 years or 15 years. What happens is that for any pension, whoever is retiring, you are normally given a third as a lump sum. The rest of the money is invested with the insurance fund. Depending on what rank you are, that is now where you can be able to say, out of that money, it can be spread up to about 15 years, but should be joint. If you are both are alive, then you should be able to say, just in case you expire along the way, the spouse or the next kin, we should be able to continue enjoying the benefits. The other cases is that just normal, if there is no guarantee, what happens is that money they give you until when you are dead. And it cannot help anybody. If your children all above 21, they can't enjoy that money. That money ceases from there. These are facts that you need to know and find out who runs your annuity and pension. Health matters. How will you fund your medical care? There is always, yes. There is a slide for that. I'm just coming there with some details. How will you fund your medical care? Have you seen how embarrassing it is kuprint ile kadi? Nichangie, si ndio? Siku hizi sio kadi iko kwa WhatsApp. It is such dehumanizing that you are saying that you cannot be able to fund your medical. And God has been gracious to you to give you a business, to give you a job, and you can be able to plan. Let not this burden be pushed to the children because they feel the pressure. And sometimes I listen to them and they are complaining how they have been stretched. It is important to know how will you fund, because this is a necessity and it will come. So if you want to have a joy in the retirement, is that you need to have this sorted out. For those who are half-aged parents, and especially those who are in 70s, or 80s, it is important to explore what different packages are available for them. Otherwise, it will happen even when you don't have the money. And sometimes it's about life and death situation when the resources are not there. So we need to plan how. But when you do all that, there are some small prints I have put there. Be aware of market risks. Wherever you invest, please do a good analysis. Markets can change and decide. Longevity risk. Sometimes you have already got a pension and you live longer than the pension that you had anticipated. You had said you live perhaps 15 years, then you live 30 years. So what happens in the next 15 years is covered? You can live longer than expected. Inflation can also eat all your money. Interest rate can also change. You take a loan today, it has skyrockets coming. Health risk, and you realize actually you cannot do much in that. So it is important that that happens. Let's go to the next one, transitioning stage. When you're now ready to move to that transition, what should be your priority is income replacement. You are getting a salary, but that salary will not be there in the next 1 year, inakatika. How will you replace it? Because the lifestyle has to continue. Si kusema ukiretire hautakula, hautafanya ile maneno ulikuwa unafanya, ndio? So what do you need to do? You have to figure out. And if whatever, and you know, by the way, if you are just regarding or not depending on the pension, the best you can get is 20% of what you are getting. That's the harsh reality. If you are getting 100,000 as a salary, the best you can get on pension scheme is 20K. How do you fund there? That is the normal standard. That's one. Yes. If you are in contributory scheme. How about the other one? Yes. Okay. How much percentage? What percentage? So don't you think that's what you are saying about thinking ahead? So that when there is no salary, it covers, and you'll get a few what need to be done. Hallelujah. You'll be able to say, hallelujah. The just shall live by faith. But faith without action, it's not me, it's you have said. You think in cash flow is pension or annuity, and we agreed, and I can see at least there are people who work the pension, they can actually teach you how those pension works. And you can be able to benefit. And I think that will be the next discussion. Conversion of assets. Fixed asset to liquid. It is good to do an audit of what you have in terms of fixed assets. When in transition, make sure at least in transition, 70% of all your fixed assets are liquid, unless they are the ones that are generating income. Like rental houses, those ones can still continue. Lakini hata kiko zinakusumbua, ziuze uziweke kwa liquid assets. Yes. Plot is fixed. Nizo ndio tunasema uuze. Yeah.
Vis-a-vis the interest from the money market, which is better.
Money market is better. All real estates at most, it will give you 7%. Yes. Maximum 7%. That is, do the numbers, and we can be able to talk and do the numbers. There is also, don't confuse the capital gain from cash flow. Plot itaweza gain, ununue hapa itagain mara tatu. But the time you'll need that money utajaribu kuiuza utaweza. You actually die when it is there. That is the difference. But I said proportion. Zingine weka pale, lakini zingine make sure you are covered. Lump sum pension, also to liquid assets. That is why we have money markets that are here, and they'll help you get, these are low risk, but you are able to get yourself. Returns from investments. It is important when transitioning, it is good to have some treasury bonds. Some of these, there are those that are long term. Taweza sema hii pesa yangu wacha niweke pale. The beauty is that the only problem with the treasury bonds, sometimes the rates comes down depending on the liquidity or depending on the government microeconomics issues. Like now, most of them have been coming down. But they are sure, they are risk-free rates, whereby no government will not respect the treasury bonds. Therefore, that money cannot be lost. Dividends, this is where you have invested in shares, but this is very volatile. Investment in shares can be very volatile. And a good example is Uchumi shares. I don't know how many invested in Uchumi. Are never ready. And there are those that actually, they were delisted. Like Kenya Airways, you bought so much, yes. And Mumias.
The Berlin resolution that was done by the European and American changed the world order, and more so when it comes to the African way of doing things. I think that is where we were all confused and put in a cage. If you look at the RETA, World Economic World Order, where now the Eastern Asia, India, all the countries that were colonized, they're realizing themselves, and they want to check on what resources they have and build on those resources, which is able to sustain them and their citizenry, to overcome all those challenges that we are talking about. Look at ourselves in Africa. We produce 25% of raw materials used in the world. Yet, our population growth currently is at 25%, the highest in the world. All we need to do is to focus ourselves on the resources we have, get ourselves to value addition, including after retirement. What value do I add to myself to be able to sustain myself, to move on? Because even in the money market, we are talking about 10%. Get to value addition. What percentage? Perhaps, and most likely, it is 30% per month. What is multiplication effect and ripple effect? And even as where we are, we should focus ourselves. What are these resources that we have that we need to build up and evolutionize our economic status, to empower ourselves to grow up to a very challenging resolutions that was created against us after the Second World War.
I think that could be a discussion of another day, but now at a personal level, that is at a macro level, at personal level, that's where we are. That we need to make decisions that affects how much wealth we make and how long it sustains us. So options available is what we need to. Rental income, I said, for those who, for example, the parents who are here, and you had some land, sometimes I think it's important also to make sure that you build and pass on maybe to your children at least an income that is generating cash flows. That way we'll be able also to cover them and cushion them. At transitioning, please avoid debt. When you are in transitioning stage, usikue mtu anakudai. As much as possible, for business is different. But I'm talking of personal debts. Business can do it because it is one of the things that it runs in. But as a person, when you are retiring, if possible, if you had a mortgage, by 55, pray that you should be able to clear it. But don't clear the mortgage using your final dues. How will you survive? You can still do. Yes. Yes. Correct. Yes. Correct. An advice from the wise. But if you can be able to settle all your debts at that stage, you'll be able to have a suitable retirement. Even you can think straight of alternatives when you have no pressure. Right? I can see the time I'm actually being shown, time is there. Finally, you have the lifestyle change. You have to do all that social life. You have to make sure you have social fitness and mobility. Legal planning, we had actually mentioned that, and compliance matters, you do that. And retirement. Liquidity management, we had mentioned about. What is the ratio of fixed assets to liquid assets? It should be able to move as the age goes. Take to me the other next slide, please. And of course, there you have investments in retirement. Avoid investing in fixed assets unless the latter phase or the ones that you're already doing for inheritance. Invest in liquid assets, and of course, there are those that have been given there. I mentioned about nutritional health. Get regular medical checkups. It is important at this age. Ensure you eat right. Exercise regularly. Don't take risk exercises. You see those? Please go to the other one, number 3 there. Don't try this at home when you're in retirement. Because if you break your bone, it will be very difficult for it to grow. Right? It is important for you to eat more vegetables and whatever depending on the body. It is important to enroll for a golf course when at least that's a place to spare a bit of good time, is it? And I think that one we have been really because of time. I just want to highlight quickly. Just go to think about streams of income. Next. It is important to have several, at this point, it is important to do this. Try to make sure you have different streams. If the salary has gone, then for pension, then you have to think, where else would I be able to fill there? It could be rental income, it could be shares, it could be business, it could be any other. And I need just to, this is what I want to end with. Next one, just a quick one. On retirement, you can create extra income by taking advantage of those 4 boxes. The first 2, time management, time and talents are God-given resource. Nobody will take away from you. So what do you need to do? You can actually, as you retire, it is the time you can actually think of new ideas. Now you have time. Nobody is actually spending your time. Can you make that time too? How much time are you allocating the family now, thinking of new ideas, sharpening your skill? By the way, at this retirement, you can actually go back to school. You can even begin. And she is back to school. Higher. Thank you. Correct. You can go back, sharpen your skill. And that is why, that means you can create a new career all together. So it is not lost. When that employer kicks you out, Bana Kemodo, You can go back to school and go to school of law, and you still practice and become a lawyer. You have seen that? Yes. Uh-huh. There is somebody I spoke in the last meeting in GEM. He was 83 years old and he has a farm and is actively doing it at 83. So it is possible. Age 50, and you graduated. Na sasa sinaona. Haha. Don't you think that there is still a lot to explore and explore the world after retirement? Do you need just to seek like this and that there is nothing else you can do? You can do something. And I want also to think about those people who are retiring and they're not in business. Don't you think you should be able to have a database of the skill you can provide? There are so many young businesses that need your advisory service, even appointment to their boards to help them organize. And what I'm trying to say is that the exec, please put in the wall. Another one says profiles of the retirees of this GEM. And wherever I'm talking to businesses, I've told them that here you have a lot of wealth of experience. They can tap into that in the advisory boards, and some of them will actually give you money for you to continue surviving as an extra stream of income. Does that sound good? For talent, there are those who are talented. I'm telling you, there are people who are very good writers. You can write something and you'll be able to put it. You can write a book. Some of you just need to write your biography and people will read and you get royalties for it. Right? Skills. But then you also need money management. Please, it is important to do what you call realignment, how you change your habits to fit your finances. It is important for you to know that this money or the habits that you have created is good to align with the realities of the money that you have. For assets, it is important for you to reorganize your assets so that you can improve your cash flows. Remember, your goal number one is to have your cash flows. And now, because my time is gone, can you take me to the next one? Because I want to wind up. I realize the time is too short. Next one, just go. This is just a small indication of the money market. You can have, if you have any of those denominations, if you can be able to put together money that you have already saved about 10 million shillings, that can give you, at that rate, it can give you about 1.3 million shillings every year. That will give you roughly about how many? About 100, how much per month? About 100,000 shillings. A retiree, and I think is Wanjao who had done a bit of numbers, that a retiree who is not paying a mortgage, he has nothing, is not paying any school fees. If you have 50,000 shillings, you are sorted. So that means if you can be able to put all together, even just buy that idle asset that is not there and it's in prime, it can raise you that 10 million shillings. You are better off to keep it so that you can be able to get almost a monthly income of that nature. Does that make sense? Next, I want I'm winding up and say, this guy, Steve Jobs, everybody knows him. He died a billionaire at the age of 56 of cancer. His last words was this: I reached the pinnacle of success in the business world. In other eyes, my life is an epitome of success. However, aside from work, I have little joy. In the end, wealth is only a fact of life that I'm accustomed to. At this moment, lying on the sick bed and recalling my whole life, I realized that all the recognition and wealth that I took so much pride in, we have paled and become meaningless in the face of impending death. You can employ someone to drive the car for you, make money for you, but you cannot have someone to bear the sickness for you. Material things lost can be found, but there is one thing that can never be found when lost: life. Life is a journey. Take your time to plan it. And that's why all of us, we are saying we can plan it better. Don't leave it for chance. Next one, I think is the last slide. Potential unexpressed turns to pain. When you're in retirement and you have potential that is not expressed, it may turn out to be a pain. So what you say, if you can't fly, then run. If you can't run, then walk. If you can't walk, then crawl. But whatever you do, you have to keep moving. Even at the retirement, you need to keep moving, reinventing yourself, talking to your peers, talking to advisors, and you'll be able to get there. And that it is, and I think, thank you. We got the next one, question and answers. Maybe you can take a few because I can see time has gone, and I want to release you guys. And I hope, I'm sorry I've taken more time than I thought, but I think, here you are. I'm ready to take one or two questions.
A round of applause. That was very good, Brother Simon. And I've taken two things away. You should not be called by the bank when you retire. But there is one called KRA, sijui utafanya nini. And then the other thing is watch what you eat. And there's something Albert Wanjau shared something this morning. Is he here? It was very good. You eat food that rots. Did you see that? Ile chakula inaoza. And actually we had an experience in our family where we were away from the house for 2 weeks. We left a banana, a mango, and a tomato, a ripe tomato. When we came back, the banana was rotten, the mango was rotten, the tomato was looking at us very ripe. It had not rotten. And the question is, what are we eating? We need to be very careful what we are eating. So it's time. We'll take a few questions, and we can also take comments because I know we have a wealth of experience here. So questions and any comments, tafadhali.
Let me stand where you can all see me because this is an appeal I'm making to all of you. I stopped working in 2012. I think I was 52. And I was forced out of work because of the young generation that joined the hotel industry, because they could be paid less. And so I was expensive. So I was pushed out with very many excuses, but it was okay. Since then, I've been doing a lot of business, small businesses here and there. Some make sense, others don't make sense. Some were a waste of money, spent a lot of money. But my greatest investment is when I went back to school. I am asking you, do not look down on the idea of going back to school. I didn't go to do a PhD or a first degree or anything. I started off with a certificate. And on the 1st of August, I'm getting my second certificate. What I did is I joined an online school. They have a church here. And all I did was ministry, just to be taught How do you minister to the youth? How do you minister to the aged? How do you go to do hospital visits? How do you do home visits? How do you start a fellowship? Something that we can all do because we are all born again and we have been called to build the kingdom of God. I'm not saying that I'm going to go to Park University and do a theological course. If that is the will of the Father, I will do it. But I started off with a certificate. And it was simple as this: once a week, either online or personal, or one-on-one. Some chose one-on-one, others chose to go physical. I did the first certificate. Then I did the 2-year certificate. Once a week, physical, rest of the time, online. But you have little assignments you're doing. You get into groups of 3s and 4s, you make new friends. I got into a group of 4 ladies. We started a chama just to help each other. You know, buying milk and bread. Every month you'd get something. We decided, no. We are going to start saving. In 1.5 years, we have saved up to 325,000 shillings in 1.5 years. It started off as I went to school on my own, joined a group, joined a chama. We are sending that money into a money bank. We're going to into a money fund. We are going to now agree where that money will go so that it can grow. The oldest one among us is 72 years. I'm the next. Our youngest is 40 years. We're 5 ladies. I'm challenging you. Think about it. Don't say you're too old. If anything, I have become more sharper, more alert than ever before. To a point where my own family is telling me, my siblings are telling me, Haya, we are joining you. Yeah, nimefunguka. Bwana asifiwe. Let's think about it. If you're going to retire, don't retire and sit at home. Call me and ask me, which school is that you went to? Dr. Utemba. Yes, I challenged Dr. Utemba. I told him, I want to know that school. He was getting a doctorate. Sijui kama nitafika huko, lakini with God all things are possible. I asked him, which school was that? He gave me details. So after this, I'm going to find out what else can I do, because I am home alone. Empty nesters. How many of us have got children at home? Don't put up your hand. You're very many. Because you're now saying to shosho, mi sijafika huko lakini naomba, hallelujah, tutakuwa na harusi very soon. Naombea my son apate bibi, so I can also be called shosho legally. Naitwa shosho na wengine. But besides the point, you're seated at home, both of you, you're looking at each other and you're twiddling your fingers. Don't wake up there. Read. I'm challenging you, ladies and gentlemen. Think about it. If I can get 4 people that I can enroll in the school that I am in, I'll be so happy. Because you come back and you preach this word. Mbarikiwe sana.
Thank you very much. I think, I don't know whether there is any other comment. Any other comment? Make it brief. Make it very brief in the interest of time.
Simon, do you have a solution for people who never planned so well? They invested in assets, but the economic situation is that they cannot liquidate them. So what do they do? I'm not talking about myself.
So what assets are these cannot be liquidated? Because land, I sell land, bring it to them, I'll sell it, I'll help sell it. And there are other people who are actually ready to do it. There are people who are willing to have joint venture. They can actually be able to bring money, and they have the land, and they can be able to unlock it. There are very many options. It is because sometimes shida inakusonga paka hata ufikirie beyond that. But if you can be able to direct them to somebody who can advise, that will be great, right? So don't stop with a problem. Please, if you think that umefika kwa wall, ongelesha your peers. And this is the people who you can talk to. And if you really need to get an advisor from an expert on financial point of view, I'm available because I'm among of you that can be able to help. That's right. And as the last thing that I wanted just to say is that part of this, there are five modules that I do in financial management, and especially for the young people. Financial discipline is a big thing. People get money and they blow it away. There's a course that I do. It's only a 2-hour course. Financial, then we have what we call financial discipline, debt management. It's a big thing. It is depressing a lot of people. Investment decisions, risk management, and retirement. Please, I would like you to recommend. At least you have a son, you have a daughter, you have a cousin, you have a family friend, that most of them, they can be able to make a fortune turn around just because you have listened and there's somewhere they can be helped. I'll put the details of the course in a gem wall so that you can do. But any one of you who will be able to want to take it, I want to make a special discount that I'll give 50% for the gem members, those who enroll within 7 days, and it will be done.
A round of applause. Thank you very much, Brother Simon. We want to do the last thing we have today, and I will invite our sister Handasa to lead us. Thank you very much.
Okay, last year we went into groups, and some of these groups did not work. You didn't manage to meet. It's okay, it is well. There's a new season. There's a fresh anointing for us to do groups again. I want to testify. I don't know. Anne, where is Anne? Oh, you're there. Anne and I and the Kenyuas and Kigo Karaoke. We went into a group and we have remained in that group. We meet every second month. We have visited Mary Mohia's place. We have been to Karaoke's place. We went to see his late mom. Is it once or twice? Twice. They've been to my home. We've been, where else have we been? I think these are the 3 places we've been. And now in May, we are planning to go and visit one of us. So it is possible. So what we're going to do is we're going to restart this whole wheel again. Here there are pieces of paper. Now usiangalia ati uchague. Anyway, ile utachagua tu ndiye ile